right, and welcome to the show. We are here, all of us here, with Mr. Steve Jackson of Steve Jackson Games. How's it going today, sir?
It goes well, considering it's the third day of Dragon Con. I had 4 hours of sleep last night, and I'm just
all about the same boats.
Ready to go.
These Sunday morning interviews are always interesting in that regard.
I guess we'll kick it off with an easy one, though. Like, what made you get into games? Like, what was the start of all this?
I got into games really in college. The guys in my dorm played a lot of Risk and similar games, and one of them was experimenting with this new strange thing called Dungeons and Dragons that we gave a little attention to. And then I found that there was a game club at the university, started playing a lot of Traveller. One thing led to another, grades went down.
As it usually happens. Except for math, like usually Dungeons and Dragons helps with probabilities and...
I had probabilities and statistics nailed. That wasn't making any difference there. Calculus, let's not talk about calculus.
Yeah. I was a criminal justice major. Math was not my forte. Y'all just want
to that end in math. If I correct me if I'm wrong, but I read somewhere that what led you to develop games and to kind of go away from D&D was the math, to make a game that was more accessible and approachable without needing complex rules. Is that accurate?
It's been through the telephone a couple of times. It's not completely wrong. I think it would be better to say that in general I wanted simpler rules. Math is good, but you've got to bury the math within a text description of what the players are playing and have the math come out in ways that support it intuitively, rather than having a layer of paragraphs and then, oh yes, now run this formula and you will find your murder coefficient for the next... You don't want to do that.
I just want to kick open some doors.
We compare two numbers, your kick and their door.
Simple. That's what I like.
I can take the next one. So going from playing Risk in college on Dungeons and Dragons, was there any formal study of game theory that you brought into your original games?
There was not. Game theory as a higher branch of mathematics had been around for a long time, but there was no crossover worth mentioning between game theory and college students playing games.
Right. And then sorry to kind of piggyback, but as you've developed more and more games, has that been a conversation that you've had with the other developers about looking at other pieces of game theory to bring it in, or has it been just a largely organic process?
It's been, both.
Yeah.
It's been very organic. At the same time, we talk about whether the academics have anything to teach us. A lot of game theory reduces down to presenting a very simple but perhaps untenable choice. And that's not necessarily what we want to do with our games. We'd rather give them two untenable choices, or two tenable choices, and make them choose one.
What is your process for creating a game? Do we start with a mechanic, or do we start with a visual aesthetic and find something that fits with that design? Or does it vary from project to project?
Very good question. It varies from project to project, but my overall style is to come up with a visual or a story. And the stories can be like, there are zombies. And then, okay, what about zombies? Well, they eat the flesh of the living. You flee them. You kill them with shotguns. They can multiply. And the next thing you know, you've got the outline of a story. Zombie dice used all those except the multiplying zombies. That wasn't needed in that story. But some of the best designers working come up with a mechanic that they want to use. They notice a clever combination that can happen when, for instance, you're rolling 2 6-siders and a 12-sider, and they build a game around that. And I say, how did he do that?
So there's like
because that's not
different
that's
sides
not
of the
the way
coin. You
I
got some
approach
people
it.
that are basically like engineers that are like, all right, here's a thing. Now let me figure out how to make it appealable. And then the artist is like, let's do a game about this, and then figure out the engineering part of it later.
That's fair. That's fair. And sometimes there is no engineering part to follow, or I don't see it, and the game languishes.
Just finding that balance between the two that breeds success.
Mm-hmm. Because you've got to find a nice way to put it into some kind of randomization device, which might be dice, or it might be something fancy like the Jenga tower, or it might just be the way people are given different information at the start of the game and choose to put them in. No, that wasn't read, and out of that we build the story.
How do you and your company, how did you, when video games started to become a thing, how did you incorporate that, I guess, that paradigm shift of gaming into the company's focus?
With moderate to poor success. I was an old friend of Richard Garriott, who you know is Lord British. He and I were in the same SCA group together. And as he got his computer game company off the ground, I continued to work with my physical game company. And we were friends, and we wanted to work together. So he ended up doing digital versions of Ogre and of Car Wars. They were both moderately successful, but Richard decided that he would rather not take any further licenses, that they would like to just create their own worlds, like Ultima grew to be, for instance. Mm-hmm. And after that, our development languished for a few years. We're getting it back. We have a digital version of Munchkin that's on Steam now, and that seems to be doing pretty well. This is about the third attempt to license Munchkin for digital games. And the first two, I could have told them. I did tell them. The Munchkin character, Spike, is beloved of Munchkin players, but he's not Mickey Mouse. He's not enough to carry a franchise on his own. You wouldn't have Spike World. So a computer Munchkin game really has to be about Munchkin and about the things that happen in Munchkin for the players to feel satisfied.
And that was such like a social experience too, that it's like it's
That's fair.
almost hard to play digitally, because it's like half of the fun of Munchkin is being in the room with your friends and arguing over trying to make deals to fight the monsters or screw over your buddies. It's like
The Steam version lets you do that anyway, which is why it's catching
I'll
on.
check that. I haven't tried that one yet.
Look at it. It's recommended. Oh, could we go around the table? Better late than never, so I know who all I'm speaking to.
Joe Harris, Brad Jackson, Cigar Nerds podcast.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys do together? Yeah, Jeffrey Venture from the Convention Collective.
Trey Burley with Daddy Mojo.
I'm Jake. I'm with him.
Okay.
I'm Charlotte and I'm with him.
Welcome. So, what can I tell you about what's coming up next, or about the process of making a game?
What's the new thing? What's coming out?
Well, this box that I'm holding up that you can't see on your audio screen.
Follow us on Instagram.
I will
Facebook
hold up.
See this later.
This is Gru the game. Looks like everybody here is old enough to remember Gru the comic book if you happen to be around. Gru is this lovable barbarian pastiche of Conan. When Gru comes to town, it's always bad news. He doesn't mean any harm. So he will train your army and they will run away in fear. He will help you put up a building and it will collapse. He's bad news. So the game is a city builder game with cards representing the various, well buried, you put this up real good, the various kinds of buildings that you might have in a little medieval town. And Gru is the wild card who goes floating around and knocks them down. You can build armies of your own to get in on the knocking down action, but Gru is superior to any army.
Are we all right to take a few photos of these?
And right off the bat, we've got the tax collector. Of course.
This is a production
Always
version. It
comes
will
a
hit the store
tax collector to
soon.
give
It's
it
on the boat, right?
Is this an old game?
Yes, this game was originally produced something like 25 years ago, and then it went out of print and it just languished. And I thought I will use my great evil publisher powers to make a deal and bring it back, and that was what would happen. We did that on WizWar too. WizWar is even older. WizWar has been out for about 40 years, and it's a fun game. It's a tactical game. You put up to 6 wizards in a stone labyrinth, and then they cast spells until one survives.
I mean, you're obviously a player yourself. What's a game outside of ones you've created or worked on that? Do you have a favorite non-original game?
Yeah. I like Century for a quick game. I like Terraforming Mars for a slow game, because that's very well thought out and very. I've never won terraforming, but I'm going to keep trying.
It's the journey, not the destination, right?
Yes, and Irene showed me a great game last night called Innis, which is Celtic explorers coming onto an unknown island. And it's like, yes, if Settlers of Catan were fun.
Shade.
One thing, I was down in the gaming room yesterday, and one thing I found fascinating was that you were down there, and you were engaging, you were playing with some of the participants. I presume you were teaching them, and I just found that akin to like a Scorsese at a what? Sorry.
I guess I've got about 2 minutes.
Okay. It was akin to like a famous director at a film festival who you don't expect it. What do you get from the fans down there?
Energy, enthusiasm, sometimes new ideas, just new input that I won't get if I just sit at my computer. Also, I get to play the new games.
Any questions from the youth? Think on it. It'll hit you. It'll hit you.
I'll shoot one out here. So Munchkin has been adapted to a number of different versions at this point.
Yes. More coming.
Awesome. Is there any other show, movie, or other IP, any huge dream kind of IP that you would love to make a game around, whether it's a Munchkin version or an independent game?
Well, I'd love to do a good Star Wars game.
Okay.
I don't think that's going to happen because it's
Big IP.
it's a big IP and it's been mass marketized to the point where they probably don't feel that there's a market for what I would consider a good game. Some of these Star Wars games are good for what they are, but I admire the franchise. I'd like to see Firefly come back in sometime like its original form. Ditto Bab 5. Yes. Get on to those and get people working. I would just kill for the opportunity to keep making more Munchkin games. People like them.
Love it.
And, yeah,
We
look
have
forward to playing them.
we have Munchkin Paranoia coming up late next year. That'll be a kick. Munchkin Shadowrun coming up sooner than that.
Yeah, I don't know. I always enjoy all the unique spin-offs and everything else. And the fact, too, that it's unlike some of the other games you have referenced from other people, it's like, no, everything can be integrated. Like,
Yeah, some of the parties where everyone brings a different box of Munchkin and just mix them together, and whatever randomness happens is
Whatever-
just the artwork.
Whatever
on it, too, is-
stupidity happens. Yeah.
Well, I guess as we kind of wrap up here, where can people find you, buy your games, follow all the things y'all do?
I will turn it over to the social media expert. Is the social media expert ready this morning? Awaken.
Yeah, we're on all the social medias. Facebook, the thing that used to be called Twitter. You can always find us at sjgames.com. We have the Daily Illuminator and several email newsletters where you can get updates on our various games. And you can always find us at Warehouse 23 or your friendly local game store.
And the Daily Illuminator appears to be the oldest continuing blog in the world.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
The oldest blog on the World Wide Web, specifically.
Okay, where else would there be a blog?
Other internets that are not the World Wide Web.
No. We don't count that. Okay, point taken.
We don't understand that either. So. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your time.
Oh, very much.
Been an enlightening interview, and hope you enjoy the rest of your con.
I hope so too. It's been fun so far. Any last questions?
Where did your inspiration for Munchkin come from?
That's a good question. For Munchkin, I wanted to do a game that would be a satire on bad Dungeons and Dragons. I didn't want to satire good D&D because people can have a lot of fun with good D&D. But I wanted to make fun of the kind where you just go charging down, kicking down doors, and killing everything for the experience points and going, I leveled up, and arguing about the rules all the time. And I said, well, I'll do a game where that's the purpose of it. And when you take all of the stupid role-playing out, it proves that what you have left is a pretty good game.
Did you create Munchkins because you wanted to create a game that's funny, or you created it for some way?
Could I create monsters because I want the game to...
the game that you played, that you made.
Okay, I'm not following the question, I'm sorry.
I think he's asking, was the root of the game through action or comedy?
The root of the game was through comedy. I wanted a silly game to be a satire on D&D. And then we made up silly monsters to go with it.